We'd like to show each objective in this course in the context of real music examples. Now, the first several objectives are very simple and may not really warrant the need for showing them in real music, but we want to get in the habit of doing so, so I'm going to do several of the first objectives in one video. You'll be able to skip ahead at links that appear in the bottom. The program I'm using to show these examples is called Notezilla, and it's a web-based program that you can go to yourself. The web address is www.notezilla.io. Alright, what I have here is variation 9 of the J.S. Bach Goldberg Variations. Let's listen to a little bit of it. Alright, objective number 1 asks us to identify the letter names of the musical alphabet. As you've either read or probably already know, there are 7 letters, and those names are A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And while we'll learn exactly how those letters and reading notes on the staff in later objectives, we can be assured that every pitch that we see here and just heard is represented by one of those 7 letters. We won't have any other letters involved. For example, down here, this is a G, this is also a G, this is a B, this is an A, this is a B, this is a C. And we'll learn later objectives how we can have more than 7 notes up and down the staff and heard, but still only have 7 letters of the musical alphabet. Objective 1.2 is to label the white keys of the keyboard with the letter names. And here's the keyboard that I have. This is the keyboard found at virtualpiano.net, which is also something you can go to. And if you play the note, you'll hear the pitch. Just as there are 7 letters in the musical alphabet, those 7 letters can be attributed to the notes on this keyboard. And if I know the letters of the alphabet on the keyboard, as well as the music notation, I can start putting those together. For example, let's listen to this first line and just watch these notes here. There we go. And let me bring up the keyboard. If I play those notes, if I know that this is a B, and I know that this is a B over here, and I go forward, whoops, that's a little bit too high. And that gets me through these notes of the piece. Objective 1.3 is to identify the difference between half steps and whole steps on the keyboard. You'll have learned by now that the distance from any one key to any adjacent key is a half step. So from here to here is a half step. From here to here is a half step. And these white keys with no black keys in between are half steps themselves. The distance from here to here is a half step. The distance that is a combination of any 2 half steps is one whole step. So the distance from here to here is a whole step because we have half step here, half step here. As we learn to relate this to the music over here, we'll realize that what we call stepwise motion, it can either be represented by whole steps or half steps. So this is a B and this is an A. If we transfer that to the keyboard, and I show you where B is and I show you where A is, we can see from the keyboard that that is the distance of a whole step. This B to this A. A back up to B, that's another whole step. And then this B to this C, though, which is this key to this key, we'll notice that that is actually a half step. So right here, we have a whole step. Right here, we have a whole step. And here, we have a half step. Objective 1.4 asks us to identify how accidentals affect notes using the keyboard. We're talking about sharp signs, flat signs, and natural signs. In this example, variation 9 of the Goldberg Variations, we do see one accidental right here, is the first one that's printed in associated with the actual note. Let's listen to it. And you'll have learned by now that sharps raise a note by a half step, flats lower a note by a half step, and the natural sign cancels out any sharps or flats that were either in the measure or that were appear in the key signature. So let me bring up my piano for a moment. And right now we have a treble clef written down here, and we'll learn exactly what these note pitch names are in later objectives. But for right now, I'm going to tell you that this is a D, and then this has a sharp sign in front of it. It's the note on the same space. We're going to say that this is this D right here. In fact, it's this D right here. And when this note appears with no sharps or flat signs next to it, we can call it a natural note. That corresponds to this white D natural. If we have a sharp sign in front of it, it means it's going to raise it by 1/2 step. So this black key can be called D sharp, and that is the note that we would play to play this printed pitch. Objective 1.5 tells us to label the black keys of the keyboard with enharmonic spellings. What we've learned by now is that the black keys on the keyboard are labeled in regards to their position to the white keys. So let's look at this pitch for a moment. The white keys to the left and right of this pitch are D and E. So if we start on D, we wanted to raise this pitch by 1/2 step, we'd land on this black key. So we'd call this black key D sharp. But it has an enharmonic spelling, another name that points to the same note. So we could call it E flat, because it takes the E natural and lowers it by 1/2 step. So the name of this note is both D sharp and E flat.